Hi, I'm Bob Balch with the That's Jesus channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at cremation. Here's the question. Is cremation a problem given the biblical stance on it? Is there even a biblical stance on it? That's what we're going to look at. But first, if you are here just because you want to justify a desire to not follow the wishes of someone who passed away, this video is not for you, okay? You need to abide by their wishes regardless of how strongly you feel about it. But if you really want to just explore what the Bible really says about cremation, stay tuned. And here's a spoiler alert. If anyone ever told you that cremation is sinful or that Christians shouldn't do it because the Bible condemns it, they're wrong. There's nothing wrong with cremation. So there's a lot of arguments that anti-cremation people use to say that cremation is a sin and you shouldn't do it. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at every argument that I could find in my research. But let me interject a quick point before we get into this topic about cremation. I would like to encourage you to find out what your loved one wants to happen with their body once they die, and then do what they want. Even if it takes the rest of their estate to do it, it's their money. So if you don't get an inheritance out of it because they want to be buried instead of cremated, that's just the way it is, okay? We need to honor the wishes of the deceased, and that's actually what this first anti-cremation argument is about. It is called the honor argument, and we have to honor our father and mother. That's what these anti-cremation folks will say. It's all about honoring the dead. And their argument is that burial is the only honorable way to dispose of a corpse. And what the people who use this argument will do is they will utilize Abraham's story of burying his wife, Sarah. And they will say, look, Abraham buried Sarah. It's right there in the text. We need to do what Abraham did for his family. He had a cemetery plot. Everybody in his family was buried there. That's the honorable thing to do. And so we need to do that too. That's their argument, right? Is that a good argument though? Well, let's go ahead and look at those verses in the story of Abraham acquiring the land for his wife's Sarah and her funeral. So this is going to be in Genesis chapter 23. We're going to go ahead and start reading that so that we can figure out exactly what the context is and not just what people say that it is, all right? So this is from Genesis chapter 23, starting in verse 1. Sarah lived to be 127 years old. These were the years of her life. She dies. Abraham goes to mourn for her and weep for her. Then he rose from before his dead, and he spoke to the sons of Heth. That's the community where he's living. And he says, I'm a stranger. Give me a burial site. And the sons of Heth, they talk to him, right? And so what happens is Abraham is able to buy a cemetery plot, and they haggle back and forth about the price and everything. But Abraham winds up getting this plot of land, and he buries Sarah there. His son Isaac is eventually buried there too, and Abraham is even buried there, and even Jacob is buried there. And this, they say, is proof that God wants people to be buried because that's the only honorable way to dispose of your dead. Abraham wanted to honor Sarah, and he buried her. Well, let's look at this passage, right? This passage talks about Abraham wanting to bury his wife. Does it say that he wanted to bury her because he wanted to honor her? Why does Abraham want to bury Sarah? It is actually very specific in the verse, in that passage, why he wants to bury Sarah. Look in verse 4. It says this, I am a stranger and a sojourner among you. Give me a burial site among you that I may bury my dead out of my sight. He doesn't want to see her anymore, right? I mean, that makes sense. Why would you not want to see your wife for some reason? You probably wouldn't want to see your wife decaying in front of you. Like, I didn't want to see my father after he died, right? I saw him at the funeral, of course, but, after a while, the corpse is going to start to rot and decay. You don't want this decaying corpse in your presence anymore. You need to get the dead body out of your sight. And that, of course, is what Abraham wanted to do. It's always comforting to have a place to go back to in order to say goodbye to them one more time, or two or three or four. even though they aren't there, it's nice to be able to say goodbye. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to honor a dead person is to bury them. That doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. And it was certainly a custom, right? Obviously, those people had burial plots. That's why Abraham went to them. But is that really why Abraham wanted to bury Sarah? Just to get rid of her body? Maybe. To honor her? It doesn't say it was to honor her, but I think there's something else that he might have wanted to do. I think that there's a good indication that he wanted to bury her there because that was the promised land. Even though the fulfillment of that promise would not come for hundreds of years later when the Israelites left Egypt under Moses, Abraham maybe somehow wanted to lay claim to this promise because his wife, his dead wife, Sarah, was buried in the promised land somehow. And I mean, Abraham's buried in the promised land, right? His children or Isaac is buried in the promised land. So he had a toehold there. Maybe that's what it was. We don't know for sure, but we do know this. Utilizing Genesis chapter 23 to justify burial being the only honorable way of disposing of your dead, well, that is absolutely ripping a verse out of context and forcing it to teach a lesson that it was never meant to teach. My mother-in-law passed away a few years ago. We had a wonderful funeral service for her. There was a casket. She was in an open casket. Everybody came to pay their last respects. A lot of people came. And a lot of them who were at the funeral have no idea that she was cremated. Instead of taking the casket out the door to a hearse to take her to the cemetery, when the funeral was over, when the memorial service was over, they took the casket out a different door and simply took her to the crematorium where they dispose of her body. Cremation makes the disposal of a body a practical thing, and it's not dishonoring the body from a biblical standpoint. Social norms, societal customs might see cremation as a dishonorable thing, but that does not give someone the right to incorrectly use the Bible to say that the only honorable way to dispose of a body is to bury it. Hey, don't go any further. You've only watched video 1 out of the 17 in the series on anti-cremation arguments that are demolished. Make sure you wait to the end where you can see a link to the other videos where if you want to watch them one by one, you can. There's also the ability to watch the entire series all in one sitting on one video, or I have them grouped into groups of 3 or 4 as well. My name is Bob Balch for the That's Jesus channel. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Have a great day and be blessed.